On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Nora. And Nora was in an abusive relationship with a victim playing opportunist. It's a story of rescuing, isolation, gaslighting, infidelity, hoovering, and confusion. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today we have Nora. How are you?
Hi, Brandon. I'm okay. How are you?
Well, I am doing well. Thank you for asking, and thank you for being here. And if you want to be a guest like Nora is today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. And there you can read all of our instructions and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. And there is a content warning for today's episode, as we do discuss animal abuse in this episode, as well as sexual assault in this episode. And that is our content warning for today. And today we're going to be hearing Nora's story, and Nora's story took place over 1 year's time. And it's one where her abuser was able to kind of just stick around, have their foot in the door as other things in Nora's life were falling apart. So a big thank you to Nora for being here today. And now I'm going to get out of my way and your way. Nora, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll just start with a little bit of background about myself, kind of where I come from, how I was raised, just for the context. I come from Italy, and my upbringing was quite strict and kind of hinging upon blame and guilt for pretty much anything. And these are the kind of things that I kind of continued carrying within me. So my parents divorced when I was little. I used to live with my mom, and she would be very controlling herself. Most things were kind of hinging upon blaming me. It seemed that I had responsibility for pretty much everything, although, again, I was a child. Those responsibilities did include kind of looking after her from various aspects, almost becoming her therapist quite often. So I guess it's no surprise that I did end up becoming a therapist. My relationship with my dad was never great. I always had to do everything perfectly as expected. So I kind of came to, become this kind of the one that has it figured out, the one that has to fix problems, fix others, to always be there for others.
So within your childhood, you're parentified. You're managing emotions, situations, people that are older than you. What is running you? And I guess, what are your beliefs in relationships? What are your views on relationships? And who are you as a person besides this growing up, like as far as like in your friend group, et cetera?
Ultimately, it's that, and I don't want to sound dramatic, but it's that I never felt loved by my parents. Love always felt like a transaction, as in, I can only be loved if I am like this, if I do this and that, if. Love is not unconditional, and therefore I have to be in a certain way in order for people to even just like me. So I think that's what, again, always stayed within me, still stays within me. So I became extremely independent, and I really struggle asking for help or opening up.
And eventually, at the age of 18, you leave your country and, you kind of head off to start living your life. So what happens from here?
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I leave as soon as I finish high school. I moved to the UK, and again, similarly to all that I've just said, my mother's comment on that was, oh, well, you'll just last, 2-3 months over there, then you'll be back here with your mom, which I did not appreciate, but that's what she said. And actually I ended up staying for 9 years. So I ended up going to university. I have 5 qualifications in kind of psychology, psychotherapy. And so I started working for the national healthcare system as a therapist. Also, I had quite solid social network. So then at the age of 27, I couldn't have been happier. I had everything that I wanted. Also, I had rented a flat just for myself, which might not sound like much, but it did mean a lot for me because, well, it's quite hard in the UK to rent a place for yourself for many different reasons, but I had managed to achieve that. I had my pets with me. And also something that I think I forgot to mention is a few years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism, which meant that I kind of went on most of my life just not being aware of how I really was. So those diagnoses really helped me understand myself and, again, just kind of achieve a certain, I guess, self-growth, self-development. So yeah, I couldn't have been happier. I used to go to therapy myself, obviously. But yeah, that's kind of where I was at before meeting him.
So eventually you do meet the person that this story is about. So take us through the meeting and what happens from there.
So we met through a dating app, and I really wasn't expecting anything. I just thought, I can just get to know this person and then I see how it goes. But I really wasn't expecting anything. So we chatted for a couple of weeks before meeting up, before the first date. What I really liked about him, he had this sharp sense of humor. He just seemed so kind and caring and loving and sweet, just easygoing. And he had given me a sense of just being trustworthy, like safe, which, again, knowing what's happened, is crazy for me to think of that now. But that's also what really kind of made me open up with him. So there's the first date. It goes well. There is a second date immediately the day after that. And then many more dates. So he basically portrayed himself as this kind of poor man that had struggled a lot in life. A lot of bad things happened to him in terms of childhood traumas, but also just kind of other general, very negative life experiences. For example, his family was quite abusive. He would say that his parents were alcoholic, which obviously I felt very, very bad about that for him. I really felt understood and listened to. And so, well, he said that he felt the same with me. So we felt like we could really resonate with each other's experiences. And that meant a lot.
So you were bonding over trauma.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of where he he came from, how he was brought up. And then he said that he just had no contact with any of his family members because of a number of things. And that, again, made me feel really bad for him. His dad had passed away in 2020. And he had been the only one person in the family looking after his dad. And due to that, he had basically lost everything, but mainly economically, because he had to look after his dad and no one else would. And he said that that's also kind of the thing that made him distance himself from those few family members he was still in contact with at the time. And again, when I heard all of these things, obviously I did share my experiences too. I really felt awful. I thought all of this was awful. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how someone would feel. And again, it just gave me the impression that he could understand me because he could understand where I was coming from. I could understand where he was coming from. And that's very important for me. And also, because of what happened again with his dad, like I said, he had lost a lot. So he even told me that he had recently been homeless for quite a few months. He almost kind of had nothing left. And that, again, just made me feel even worse. It's just that I think I really have a lot of empathy, and that's part of my personality, but also because of my job. So I think that's really what started things between us, as in what, also made me feel like, oh yeah, I do want to be in a relationship with this person. This person understands me, listens to me, I understand him, and so on. When I met him also, he said he was studying for his PhD, that he had to interrupt when he was looking after his dad. So he was kind of late in terms of deadlines. So again, he was struggling a lot with that. He was living in a shared accommodation. The way he portrayed himself was as this self-made man. So just this poor, vulnerable victim, self-made man that had been traumatized quite a lot in life for a number of reasons. And again, overall, he just really gave me this sense of being trustworthy, just that I could feel safe with him.
So the first 2 months of your relationship are good, and eventually people are going to hear the story of a real opportunist when things start happening independent of him, of how he'll interject on certain things or insert himself into situations. But before that happens, you do have a red flag that comes up before that in December of your timeline. So take us through what happened here before we get to the opportunist.
Absolutely. So yeah, in December, I also went to visit my family over Christmas, and that's when this red flag happened. So over Christmas, as I think it happens for everyone, one of my exes just texted me, "Happy Christmas. How are you? How are things?" And it was a really, really brief, normal conversation, but he went nuts. He became so angry, so angry, just had this angry outburst. He was shouting and saying that it was a flirtatious conversation, which I really, really didn't get. And I asked him, what's wrong with this? I don't get it. But what happened is that after this sort of argument, after this angry outburst, then he apologized. We talked about it. He kind of said all of the right things, what I would expect anyone to say, obviously I overreacted, I'm sorry. Obviously I did not mean that, you or, someone else cannot talk to their ex. And, I just saw the conversation as something else, not, I didn't see it for what it was. And I'm just so glad that I met you, and I feel so great with you, and you're just so amazing, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, after talking quite a lot about it and him apologizing, I guess I kind of forgot about it. So I just moved on. I didn't think of it anymore. But obviously that was a red flag, because then things would later become worse in terms of jealousy. So in fact, what he had said at the time was exactly what he thinks, that his partner shouldn't be allowed to not just to talk to any of their exes, but also to any male in general. So later on, he would also try and brainwash me about how men are just predators, and that I shouldn't trust any men because all they want is just to sleep with me. But again, I did not know that at the time. So that's what happened back in December 2022.
So in January, officers end up raiding your house early in the morning, and they got the wrong flat of a criminal that was actually within your complex. And that gave you PTSD, and you became anxious all the time. So tell us what happened here, and how your abuser, or the abuser in this story, uses this as an opportunity to get himself into the door, to start to play savior at first, but then to, boom, kind of take it away.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly what you said happened. I was terrified. I had PTSD, and he just moved in. There was no prior discussion about it or agreement, because in any other normal circumstance, I would have never let someone that I had just met move in with me. But he just moved in with the excuse of, oh, I'm worried about you. I'm worried for you. I want to protect you. I want to be there for you. And I didn't even question it, because, again, I actually thought, oh, my goodness, how lucky I am, that I found this man that instead of running away when things get difficult, he does the opposite. He's here with me, makes sure that I'm okay, looks after me. I would have felt like a horrible person. He just started being there more and more, and then he just kind of did not leave anymore. Because of what I've explained, as in, the way that he had portrayed himself, I bought a lot of things for him, all sorts of things, from, clothing to food and so on. So that's kind of how, things went. And then I guess that because he had moved in, and perhaps he felt much more confident about having that control over me, what I call his mask kind of started to fall a little bit. All the things that he used to say he just loved about me, just appreciated so much, became the focus of his criticism. There was a lot of gaslighting as well that kind of started in this period, which means that he would say or do things, but later try to convince me that just never was the case, that I either had misinterpreted or misheard. Or there was this one occasion where we were out at a shopping center and we were just having a walk, just having a chat. And then a little bit out of the blue, he brought up this thing that he had read, something about women, but that got him started talking about how it's unfair for men that women sometimes are not as nice or say pleasant or agreeable or approachable when they interact with men due to one or more negative experiences that these women might have had with men, kind of stating that, men are sort of at a disadvantage compared to women. And if some men was ever to do that to a woman, as in, not being as nice or as pleasant or approachable, however you want to call it, then, the Third World War would start.
So even though he was bringing up a hypothetical A, B, or even though he was bringing up a situation like an A situation, a B situation, did you feel that there was a sense of entitlement from his end that he should be able to speak to women in any way that he saw fit, no matter what the woman had experienced?
Thank you very much. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to get to. Yes, and I'm saying that I was confused because the way that I knew him, the way that he had portrayed himself was exactly the opposite, if anything. So one, I was confused. Two, I was thinking he can't be serious right now. So obviously I responded, kind of trying to explain. And he, again, got angry very, very, very quickly, to the extent that, again, we were out walking. It was in a shopping center. He started shouting at me and he left. He just left. And I couldn't believe it. I remember that I just couldn't believe it because that was nothing like the person that I had met, that I knew. He kept on saying, and what he really wanted me to understand was this. I cannot think of being with someone, he said, that thinks it's okay to mistreat men because of their own experience, which is absolutely not what I had said. Or at no point did I say that this was my opinion, but that's kind of how he distorted it and how he used it to blame me. So again, in this period, obviously, I was not very well because of what had happened, but then other things started happening. So then I started having some problems at work. There was a lot of work. I would do a lot of overtime.
And how are you coping when you're dealing with the stress of PTSD, you're dealing with this kind of stress that's going on with work, and then the confusion of this person coming in to rescue you, but then to also have these mask-slipping, abusive behaviors taking place?
I think that one of the issues for me was that it's not that I did not see what was happening. I did see it. I just wouldn't call it abuse because that had likely never happened to me before in a romantic relationship. But it's almost as if, because there were these other very serious issues going on in my life, I would also very frequently tell myself, oh, I'll just see how it goes. I'll deal with this later. Now I really have to focus on this and this and that instead. Maybe he's just being dramatic and he does love to take on the role of the victim. Yeah.
So he's already kind of moved in, even though he has his own place. He's not on your lease, but then due to mold issues and repairs, the landlord serves you an eviction notice, and this gives the abuser here an in to get you to move in with them. So what happened from here?
In March, the flat where I was living had quite a few issues that, for example, caused mold. So it was literally not really safe But what that meant is that because my tenancy agreement, my contract was expiring in March 2023, then what my landlord did is he just did not renew it. So he served me an eviction notice, which meant within less than 30 days, I had to be somewhere else, full stop. Obviously, I did not need that at the time, and that really messed things up even more for me. And there again, obviously, he became the savior, right? Because that's when he would really tried convincing me to move in together somewhere else. But he insisted, and he made quite good points about it. So we look for places. We do find one eventually. And we agree on a date with the letting agency to sign the contract. However, on that day, he just ghosted me and the letting agency. And by ghosted, I mean that he just stopped replying to texts, to calls. That was really awkward for me, also in terms of the letting agency, because I genuinely did not know what to tell them. I really didn't know what was going on. So he just disappeared, and well, obviously they gave the flat to someone else because that's normal. That's how it works. When he did reappear the next day, he did apologize quite a lot, but he also made sure that he explained that he had a good reason for that. That was that because the start of the tenancy agreement would have kind of overlapped, let's say, with his current tenancy agreement in his shared accommodation. Basically, he would have wasted 2 weeks' rent. So that wasn't beneficial enough for him. So I guess he just decided to ghost me for that. Obviously, I was mad. I told him I did not care about his reasons whatsoever, because obviously that could have just been discussed. So I just didn't want to hear any of that. But he just did not stop. And again, at the time, I saw it as, oh, he loves me so much. He just doesn't want to lose me, which is what he was also saying. So he'd send me gifts, like he sent me flowers, send me a letter of apologies, would constantly text me, would try to call me. And then there was a bit of future faking as well. At that point, he already started mentioning how he wanted to marry me and that, that we had this great future together that we really shouldn't have missed out on. Someone wanting to marry me was like someone telling me, I want to love you forever. You are my person. And that to me was just extremely valuable. And that's, and it's in this sort of moments that he would then kind of play that card against me, to trigger me. So that's what he was doing.
So eventually things do get smoothed over from here, and you do agree to move in with him in April. And it's a place he wanted to live due to price that makes it easier for him to leave his apartment early. And also it's a very spacious place. So something were to happen, you wouldn't really have to see each other in this home, which was something he emphasized to you. Freedom of movement in the home is something that you told me that he said to you. However, it's far away from everything and everyone you know. You need a car here, to get anywhere. So it's like an offer of freedom, but you're also in this place to kind of get trapped. So what happens from here?
So yeah, we moved there in April. As you were saying, the house is big enough for two. We don't even have to talk to each other, which is also a sentence he had repeated quite a lot. Oh, we don't even have to talk to each other. If you don't want to see me or talk to me, you can just be, that's fine. And I think that's in April, that's when things really started getting worse, because at that point I had signed a 1-year tenancy agreement with him. I was alone. literally alone. There was nothing else or no one else around or being able to help me, I guess, or support me, except for him. So because of this, I guess that's why he showed his true self a little bit more. Weaponizing competence. So I started becoming, I don't know, some sort of slave in the house because I was literally doing everything. And whenever I'd try to bring this up, he'd say, "Oh, but I don't know how to do that." Or, "Oh, but I don't know that." And now you kind of blame it on me. He would just give me the silent treatment, but I can't even call it the silent treatment because it was more than that. It's like I didn't even exist. He wouldn't just acknowledge my existence, my presence. And then perhaps move things like, say, in the kitchen by, I don't know, just almost like not throwing them, but, just moving things loudly, slamming doors or slamming other things. I would literally ask him questions and he just wouldn't respond, as if I was not there, as if I was alone. That didn't work. Great. Then he'd go on with kind of the opposite, almost following me around the house, almost, again, asking me too many questions, almost giving me too much attention, with this look in his face as if he was some lost puppy that was just giving all of his attention to me, waiting for me to love him, to do something nice for him. I don't know, it was really strange. Then that wouldn't work. Then he'd try to sabotage me. So, for example, again, that was still the atmosphere, quite tense for the things I've just explained. Then I had to meet up with some work colleagues and he would just try to do anything that would cause me to be late. So it's like all of a sudden it was extremely important, as if it was a matter of life or death, for him to know where a very specific item was in the drawer. I don't know, say, for example, "Oh, where is that pen that it's, that pink one with the, that round shape and, that." And I was like, "I don't know. It's in the drawer, say, but I have to go, just have a look." "No, but, because the last time I thought you put it." "Yeah, okay, but I need to go. I don't know where it is. Can you just have a look?" Or ask me other questions just to make me lose time. And then that didn't work. So when I was literally stepping out the door, he'd be like, "Okay, so you're just going to leave? You're just going to leave like that?" And started shouting and trying to make me feel guilty because I was still going to go ahead and have lunch with my friends / work colleagues instead of paying attention to him. So then that didn't work because I did go. And then when I'd come back, kind of the same things happening again. But then also him bringing up, now I don't remember what exactly, but some mistakes that I had done, say perhaps a month before or a couple of weeks before, that were just completely unrelated, but he just, I guess, spent the afternoon trying to find a way of linking them up so that, again, he would have something else to make me feel guilty for. And then these things would go on and on and on and on and on. There was just no ending to it. And I was exhausted.
So while all these things are going on, you eventually decide to break up with him, but still live there with him at that time. So what happens from here?
Yeah, exactly. So we break up in June, and there was always something, First, I don't know, as in, should I be the one leaving the place or should you be the one, and how and when? So first he had to think about it. Then he thought about it, but he was suffering because things ended. So I don't know. Then I should be the one leaving. Then no, he should be the one leaving. He made me lose a lot of time. Also, I went on sick leave in June because I got the news that I had HPV and kind of those strains that are the most likely to cause you cancer in the future. And kind of the doctors made a big deal out of it. And then I guess that when you go and research these sort of things online, it's always like, oh, you don't have much time left sort of thing. So yeah, I was not doing well mentally, psychologically, let's say. And I had just agreed to still live with him. I thought I had things under control. I thought, again, I had agreed to just stay there with him a little bit longer until we figured out how to deal with this tenancy agreement. I thought I was just taking a short break from work, just taking a bit of time for myself. But I thought I had things under control, which I didn't. And this was June. In July, he'd volunteer to look after my pets whenever I was out or I was, on holiday or doing anything else at all. And then he would either forget to feed them or feed them the wrong things or not clean their litter boxes. But then it got to the point that he literally locked them outside at night in the cold. And the only reason why I know this is because we used to have cameras outside. So I literally saw him shutting my cats outside and locking the door behind him. He would just deny all of this. And again, more or less use the same tactics. So sometimes it was, oh, I did not know that they couldn't eat this. Oh, I did not know I had to change the litter. Oh, I did not realize that they were outside. All sorts of excuses.
So he really likes to use weaponized incompetence to not just not do housework and do the basics, but even when animal abuse is going on, he uses weaponized incompetence to try to get away with it. And also during this time, you start to notice that coincidentally, that your car is having more issues than normal and breaking down, and you're taking it to the shop and it's weird things that are breaking, that could be possibly that there's tampering going on. So what happens from here?
Yeah. And aside from my car, it is also during this period, but that started earlier as well, but that he'd caused me kind of further damage, financial damage, or, sabotaging, just overall abuse by also just damaging my belongings. And not only would he break things, he would break things and then again say that he didn't do it on purpose, again, the weaponized incompetence, or that he would also just outright lie about it. Like, oh, no, I didn't touch it. So that would mean that he'd break my stuff, and then that's already kind of a damage, and then I'd have to buy kind of a new one, replacement item.
So even though these abusive things are happening, these very confusing things are happening, your health at this time is also getting a bit worse. Your anxiety is ramping up and you're just in this mental hole. Plus your physical health scare has occurred. With all of this kind of happening, he then starts to persist that you two should get back together. And eventually, because of everything that's going on, you get worn down and agree. So what happens from here?
Things were not going great for me. And his constant repeated attempts to get back together did eventually work. the more I received bad news, or, the more that bad things were happening in my life. Because with this HPV, then I was told that I would have had to have surgery because of that, because the situation was extremely bad, and they had to remove all these cells that they had found that would have likely caused me cancer in the future. So I also started, having the thought of, now I'm 28 years old, but there's the chance that, soon I'll get cancer perhaps, and I'll die, which, well, obviously was devastating. And like I said, just the whole situation kind of made it easier for him to be successful at getting me back. He managed to make me believe that, again, maybe we still had a chance, maybe I did see some things in the wrong way, I misinterpreted some things, and he managed to, again, increase that and play that against me, as in, I had been horrible to him. So it's like I owed him another chance. So by the end of August, we've reconciled, and, now he's on his best behavior again. He's always there to help me, always there to listen to me, to look after me, and so on and so forth. In the meantime, my car keeps breaking down, so I go for more and more frequently, for longer and longer periods of time, being without a car. So again, that was the situation until October. October is when I do the surgery because of this precancerous cells. And then also it's when I accidentally discover who he really is. So because he had been displaying a weird behavior in the last weeks, because it was like he seemed extremely anxious all the time. And then I realized that he wouldn't even sleep at night, like for the whole night. I tried checking with him what was going on. Obviously, he wouldn't say it. Then he'd get annoyed at me for even asking. So just one day, I just decided to, I want to check his phone. I need to know what's going on. I didn't know what to think. I don't know, I thought maybe he's gambling. He lost, some bet with someone. I don't know. I didn't know what to think. But when I check his phone, what I do find instead, well, obviously always been cheating on me, not just with women, but with men as well. And I do point that out, not because it's a problem for me, like someone's sexuality, but exactly because it's important. It's not like some minor details you just forget about. So he told me he was straight, but then he was bisexual. Also, he told me that he just, wasn't able to use social media and didn't have any social media. Well, turns out he's got Facebook, turns out he's got Telegram, turns out he's signed up in all sorts of websites. And initially, because of the shock, I guess I didn't see things clearly. I just was shocked, and I thought of the cheating part. But then the more the days were passing by, the more I became concerned, because it really wasn't about the cheating. It was that he was, from what I saw, he was just really skilled at pretending to be someone else and scamming people in all sorts of ways. He would tell one person that he, for example, one of the women I even spoke to, had a job in London and, found a job in London, had to move to London and, a certain type of job. But what I knew is that he's never lived in London, never had that kind of job. And then I noticed the way in which he would, each time I had to go away for a few days, whether it was on holiday or to visit my family or to be with a friend, whatever that was, he would plan a week or a couple of weeks in advance what to do during my absence, as in, what kind of events to go that were sex related. But it was planned in a sick way. And I got really concerned. And the mistake that I made was to just confront him about it with the whole truth. And he did not like that at all. He denied all of it, which made me more confused, because at that point, I had seen things. I was not talking about opinions. And he would just deny. So that made me question my sanity even more, which when you've experienced so much gaslighting and overall manipulation, you're already doing that because you do end up questioning your own reality. You do end up questioning if what you see, what you think is really what you think it is, or if you're just crazy instead. So what I did in the end, that was in one of my best moments, but I just printed out the screenshots of the things that I had seen, and I put them up the wall, waiting for him to come back. After that, I thought that things would end there, because I just thought that no one would try anything anymore with that. But I was very wrong, because I did not understand that what I did with that instead was make him feel threatened, because at that point I knew, well, I can't say everything, but perhaps a lot about who he really was. And then he saw me as a threat.
So eventually you get arrested after a huge argument. So what happens from here?
Yes. So the argument was what followed my kind of printing out stuff and sticking it on the wall. We had this very, very, very long argument where, again, all I asked him was to just leave me alone, because it was about the fact that I had realized he was just an abuser and that I was concerned. I was seriously concerned about who he was, what he had done, and all the other things that he was doing that I didn't even know about and also did not want to. And because he really tried his best to push me to the extreme, to push all my sort of triggers and reaction in me, such as, again, just denying what was at that point literally right in front of both of us. So I also got angrier, but I was also concerned. So what I also did is, because at some point he asked, "Oh, what can I do?" You can start by giving me back my money. So I said, again, just give me my money back so I can leave. We don't have to deal with this situation anymore. You do your life, I do my life, and everyone's happy. What I did not know is that throughout this 4 hours long argument even, he had been recording me. A recording which he will overnight edit so as to go to the police the next morning to say that I had blackmailed him, that I had told him that if he did not give me this amount of money, then I would have sent his private sexual images, he said, I believe in his statement, to his employer to make him lose his job and embarrass him. Which obviously was not what happened. Now, the reason why I'm saying the recording was edited is that because during my interview, they read out the transcript to me. Obviously, I have no way of knowing if this transcript that was read to me was the full recording or not, but from what was read out to me, that was not what happened. So the next day I was taken away from my home by these police officers that were saying I was being arrested for blackmail. And I was really confused because also he did tell me that he was going to the police before leaving the house. And I laughed about it because he said that he was going to report me because I had illegally accessed his phone and that I was withholding his private data. And I laughed. To be fair, I was laughing and I said, please go. that's fine. I will have a chat with them. I don't know what to tell you, but that's just crazy. But that's not what he did. Again, it was for blackmail. So I spent a very long time in custody where I felt like the whole world was collapsing before me. I was literally traumatized, obviously. Then I am released on bail with the condition of not returning home. So I was forced into homelessness, not contacting him, obviously directly or indirectly. And also, initially the police seized my phone and laptop. However, what my abuser will tell me later, he'll just share this information accidentally, that after the police took me away from my home, he kind of went through the whole house, my room and my car as well, to look for any remaining device that he then collected and then drove back to the police to give to them. So not having any phone, tablet, or laptop meant I had no access to money, because I couldn't do online banking. I didn't have, anything, because everything was inside the house. I literally had nothing. They still released me with those conditions. The only thing I managed to agree with the police was to just collect my car that was in the driveway, which they agreed to. And him, being aware of all of this, obviously, was actually hiding behind my car when I went to collect it, and tried his best to get me to breach my bail conditions. Part of the agreement with the police was that I collect my car, but before that, he would have left my pets in their carrier inside the car or in front of the car. And then he tried again having a conversation with me, and again I couldn't have no contact with him. So from that moment, again, I'm homeless. I have literally nothing. So then other agencies become involved. That's an agency against domestic abuse. Now, at that point, I was really, I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping as well. And it was horrible.
So eventually you do get temporary accommodations. And what happens with the charges against you?
So, I do get temporary accommodation, but I am thrown from one to the other, which kind of makes things worse. Now, in terms of the police report, he actually took it back. And then, since then, he spent the rest of his time to try and convince me that he never wanted to report me. It was all kind of to do with the police. And then what happened was that just, I think, 3 weeks after, the case was closed.
So, as you stated, the case was eventually closed. And, you shouldn't be in contact with each other at this point, but he's still maintaining contact with you, even though that you don't want that contact. And in the past, something that you mentioned to me was that he used suicidal ideation as a big threat. And a couple months after this case gets closed, and he uses this tactic once more in a very despicable way. So walk us through this.
We had an argument over text, and then he told me that he was going to take his life. And in that moment, I didn't believe it, because again, obviously at that point, I had a much clearer idea of what had been happening to me, of the abuse, and I had more vocabulary. I could give a name to the things that were happening to me. But then he said to me that he was going to do that, was going to take his life. And he said in the text, "Good luck with what happens next." And that got me into a spiral of anxiety, obviously, even more hypervigilance than what I was already experiencing. So in that moment, I thought of calling an ambulance, obviously, as a way of, dealing with that. I obviously didn't want to go there and check because of everything that had happened, because of all that he had done. But then he said to me, and I did tell him that I had just called an ambulance, and he then said to me, I'm going to send them away. I'm going to tell them that everything's fine, that I'm fine, and I'm going to send them away. So again, good luck with what happens next. And I thought again that he was lying, that it was just manipulation. But then kind of checking with the ambulance, it did sound like that was exactly what had happened. So I tried calling him. I tried texting him, and there was no response. And up until then, no matter what was happening, he would at some point always respond. So that was kind of out of the ordinary to me. So then the next day, I was even more worried, even more anxious. I just couldn't take my mind off the fact that maybe he had actually taken his life and I didn't know what he had done, so that it was going to look like it was all my fault. Because when we were arguing via text, that's what he was suggesting, that he was gonna make it look like it was because of me. Eventually, although again I go to the house to see if he was alive or dead, because I couldn't take it. And then when I got there, he did explain to me that he tried taking an overdose, a mix of alcohol and pills. But then he said something along the lines of the fact that he was conscious of the amount of pills and alcohol that he had taken. As in, he knew that that was not going to kill him. And when I heard that and I realized what was going on, it was too late, because then after that, I was raped by him. And so after that happened, something changed in me. The realization of he's bad, he's evil. He does calculate, does plan things ahead, and he does it on purpose. Because this had always been a large part of my confusion throughout the relationship. And what I mean is, to what extent is he actually like this? And to what extent is he pretending, but he very well knows what is actually going on. So after that happened, I spoke to my allocated advocate with the domestic abuse charity. So she advised me as to what to do, including reporting that. And that's when things really went downhill with police as well, because then he was arrested a few days after and released on bail. And the bail conditions were similar to mine. That is, to not contact me, to not be within, I can't remember the distance, but I don't know, let's say 100 meters of me, of where I was, and so on. Which I had told the police that if they were ever to arrest him and release him on bail, because they had always suggested that this was the likely outcome in the end, I just thought that wouldn't have worked because of how he is. I very clearly told them he's not going to follow any bail condition whatsoever that you tell him to, because that's just how he is. And if he's ever going to breach those conditions, he's not going to do it stupidly. He's going to do it in a way that doesn't allow me to report it, or that somehow comes in the way of me doing that. So I'm not comfortable with that. And that is exactly what happened. The first time he breached these bail conditions, it was in person, because unfortunately, again, we were living in a very, very, very small area. We happened to be in the same place, and he just didn't leave. Actually, he stared at me in anger. And with that stare that he gave me, although he didn't say anything, at the same time, he said exactly all that I needed to know. And that scared me to death. So I did also report these bail breaches, but they did say to me in an email, he's not going to be arrested now. We will have a conversation with him about that. And after all of this, I just knew that I couldn't rely on or trust anyone anymore in terms of my safety, that was just down to me, really, that there was no one else, nothing else that could have helped me. And that's ultimately why I just left the country. I felt there was not going to be anything else to protect me.
So the evidence collected by the sexual assault referral center that you went to only proved that sex had taken place, but nothing more than that. And the detectives on the case weren't really being communicative with you. And for your own mental health, because of all of this, you decided to tell them to close the investigation. And as you stated, you moved abroad. However, he's still harassing you in the new country that you went to. So how has he been going about all of this?
Yeah, so I've tried blocking him a number of times, but that just doesn't work because, for example, say I block him on WhatsApp, then obviously he would text. Then I block his number and I start getting calls from a private number. And those you can't really block. Well, I don't answer, but it's still, your phone ringing. So, and you know who that is calling, who's calling you. So then if I don't know, it's like he uses other numbers anyway. And then if I do manage to block all these numbers and, social media, whatever, then he starts emailing me. And if not on one email, then he starts emailing me on my other email, and so on and so forth. Then I think you asked, what's happening, what's going on. Well, the harassment varies. Sometimes it's threats. Often it's, again, being the victim and saying how much he loves me. I love you, Mrs., my surname. Missing you every minute of every day, something like that. And he, throughout this month, has been telling me about how he planned on asking me to marry him this year in August. And, how we would have been happy and we would have had this wonderful life together had I agreed to still be back with him. So that's that's one of the tactics that he used, perhaps very subtle, just a little hint to just kind of make sure that he can trigger me somehow, that he gets some reaction so that I do reply, which I haven't so far, but it's also really, really hard.
And, he's still going about and doing these things as, we talked and I was there and you're like, oh, look, it's this person texting me right now. So now, even though this is still he's still trying to reach out, and, some days he's the victim and some days he's love bombing you. He says he loves you, he's kind of cycling and switching. How is the healing and the aftermath of everything been?
Well, it's been It's been really hard, and I would, to make it brief, kind of divide it onto three different parts, as in terms of, me as the victim or survivor, and him and kind of others involved. So for me, obviously, the struggle has been with the self-blame, the guilt. I felt ashamed quite a lot because I also thought, well, you're a therapist and you don't even know that that's happening to you. So I thought really poorly of myself for quite a while, which is really unlike me. So for me, my healing in terms of me has been to really believe that abuse happens because there is an abuser, full stop. That there is nothing that I have done at any point, or there's no part of my personality that have brought this about. I can't blame myself for it, and I wouldn't want anyone to blame themselves for it, because the abuse talks about the abuser. And I mean, to explain it simply, what I would think is, if you were in a position where you could take advantage of someone or abuse someone, would you do it? And I guess the answer is probably not for most of us. So that's just, again, abuse is caused by the abuser. That's what's been hard for me to accept and to understand. That's really made me feel that to not blame myself for it. In terms of him, I think my healing's been about keeping it simple. So I realized that most of the time, again, he'd waste so much time and put so much effort to just confuse me, to make me waste time, but also to sort of portray himself as this sort of complicated puzzle that I have to solve, this mystery. There's no mystery. So I think that many abusers just put a lot of time and effort to try and make you think that they are so complicated and that you need to, again, try and understand them, get into their world. But that's again, for me, in my case, just not what it is. It's just a waste of time and something that adding up to this distortion of the reality that's there. And finally, in terms of others involved, for me, it's been really difficult because I felt like everyone was providing me with some to-do list. And I got to a point, I couldn't even take a shower, or I didn't know if I was going to eat and what I was going to eat or what I was going to sleep. So to-do lists are not really needed in that case. And even if that wasn't the case, I just didn't have the resources. And I really felt like everyone wanted to tell me their opinion of what was happening to me and how they would have acted or reacted and what I should have done and how I should have done it and how I should have healed. And this just made it worse for me. Again, it was also something adding on to the overall confusion. So what I really learned is to trust my gut feeling and what I know about myself and what I want and where I want to be. Because I think that it gives people some sense of perhaps being safe to tell you that, I would have never let that happen to me. If I was you, I would have done this and that, because I guess you just feel safer, and better about yourself if you tell yourself that something like the abuse that I suffered could just never happen to you. But that's not the case. It's not as easy. So again, my healing in terms of other people is to not pay too much attention to them, but to actually focus on me instead, if that makes sense.
And if you had any words of wisdom for everyone listening, what would they be?
It would definitely be to not blame yourself and feel guilty about anything at all, because you can't prevent something that you don't even know what it's called or how it looks like. So I guess just that. And again, to trust your gut feeling, really. But there's really nothing that no survivor could have done or should have done, or, you know, what they should have said or the way they should have acted. I don't know, whatever you want that could have made things differently. But just because we are not the abuser, so we just shouldn't blame ourselves, I guess.
Well, Nora, I really want to thank you for being here with us today and sharing your story. We don't get many stories that are, less than a year. And, yours kind of, once the opportunity came, it came in. He got his foot in the door. You were trying to breaking up with him, and then, things unfolded and you got to see more of what was really underneath the hood. And I'm happy you were out within 1 year. I'm sorry that you're still dealing with this person. But I'm just happy you're here, because so many people experience a relationship that was on the shorter end, but it's all still abuse. And as you said in your words there before, no one deserves abuse. Nothing you came in with or whatever justifies being abused. And I just can't thank you enough for being here to kind of reinforce that for everyone to hear.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nora, once again for being our guest today on our Survivor Story episodes. And if you want to be a guest like Nora was today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's the button that says guest form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. There you can read all of our instructions and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. Also at our website, if you need support, we have a support group. So if you need support, go to narcissistapocalypse.com, top of the page, press that support group button. Inside, you'll see that we have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, Thursday afternoons, and Saturday nights. We have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation that you need from survivors just like you. It's a wonderful group of people on there, and you can make a lot of friends too. So if you need support, join our support group today. And if you need even more support, please do visit our friends at domesticshelters.org. At domesticshelters.org, they have articles and resources to help you make sense of what you're dealing with. They have every phone number, email address, web address for shelters and agencies, no matter how big or small the town you are in. Domesticshelters.org has it there. And we have another friend of the show called Shelter Movers, and Shelter Movers is someplace that can actually help you move all of your stuff out of your home and into storage. So if you are someone who is dealing with domestic violence and coercive control and you need help leaving the home, the people at sheltermovers.com can get all of your stuff out of your home and into storage, including your pets and livestock too. It is currently only available in Canada. It is a donor-supported charitable organization. So if you need help from them or just want to donate to them, go to sheltermovers.com. And that is it for today's Survivor Story, for today's episode. So for myself and Nora, we hope you have a good night.